Podcasting changed my life. It helped me rebuild my business when I was at my lowest point financially. It introduced me to clients, partners, and friends who are now some of the most important people in my life. It allowed me to move closer to my daughter, and it created a business I never planned, but now I couldn't imagine living without. And today, I want to share exactly how podcasting did that for me and how it can do the same for you. Welcome back to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio, and I've been hosting this podcast for over 6 years and producing business podcasts for leaders across the country through my agency, Social Chameleon. And what I've learned is this: the real ROI of podcasting has nothing to do with downloads. It has everything to do with relationships. Before Mic'd Up, I was running Social Chameleon as a media and marketing company in Buffalo, New York, and I was still early in my entrepreneurial journey when a friend asked me to produce his podcast. I'd never produced one before, but of course, what did I say? Yes. And I learned everything I could from equipment, editing, production, one tutorial at a time. And through that process, something clicked. I realized I didn't just want to produce conversations, I wanted to have them. So I launched Mic'd Up. And at the time, my life wasn't glamorous. I was living in my sister's basement. My business was struggling financially, and I was actually rebuilding from scratch. But launching this podcast gave me something powerful: momentum, purpose, and opportunity. It gave me something to look forward to, something to build, something that was actually mine. At first, it was simply learning how to have great conversations. And then something unexpected happened. Guests started asking me to produce their podcast. And I remember thinking to myself, this wasn't part of the plan. I didn't start Mic'd Up to build a podcast agency. I started it because I loved great conversations. But the relationships created opportunity I never could have predicted. And that's when I realized podcasting wasn't just content. It was a business engine. Clients started coming directly from the relationships built through the show, and Social Chameleon naturally changed and adapted, ironically enough, into a podcast agency. I didn't plan it. Podcasting created it. Over time, this podcast introduced me to incredible people: CEOs, founders, authors, entrepreneurs. Many became clients, many became friends. Podcasting didn't only grow my audience, it grew my network, and that changed everything. Most people think podcast success comes from downloads or sponsorships, and that's not the full picture or the real value. The real value is access. Podcasting gives you a reason to connect with people you otherwise couldn't reach. Think about it. If you email someone asking for their time, most won't respond. But if you invite them to share their story, their experience, or their expertise on your platform, that really changes everything. It becomes collaborative, not transactional. And that's where real relationships begin. And when you sit down with someone for 30 minutes to an hour, trust builds fast, much faster than traditional networking. Some of the most valuable relationships in my life started from a single podcast conversation, not because I was trying to sell them, but because I built the relationship first and business followed naturally. Look at shows like the Tim Ferriss Show, or My First Million with Sam Parr and Sean Parry, or The Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. These are podcasts that didn't only create content, right? They created opportunity. They built networks. They built businesses. Every single conversation open new doors. And over time, those doors compound. One conversation leads to another. One relationship leads to another. And over time, that impact becomes exponential. Here's the truth. Starting a podcast is actually easy, but sustaining one is hard. Most podcasts stop after only a few episodes, not because podcasting doesn't work, but because consistency requires systems, production, editing, publishing, promotion. And the podcasts that succeed are supported by structure, because every episode becomes an asset. Every guest becomes part of your network, and every conversation builds trust. Podcasting allowed me to rebuild my business. It allowed me to move closer to my daughter. It allowed me to build a life doing work I genuinely love. And what started as a simple microphone and an idea became the foundation of my business, my network, and my life today. It didn't happen overnight. It actually happened one conversation at a time. And it all started with one decision: to press record. Podcasting changed my life, not overnight, but inevitably, because relationships compound, trust compounds, and opportunity continued to compound. If you ever thought about starting a podcast, I want you to seriously consider it. Not for fame, not for downloads, but for relationships, because one conversation can change your trajectory. It did for me. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, slam that subscribe button. And if you're tuning in on Apple or Spotify, a quick review does go a long way. It actually helps more people find the show, and I appreciate every single one. And if you already have a podcast or now you're thinking about starting one, comment below. I'd love to hear your story and support your journey however I can. Thank you guys so much for being here. And in everything that you do, be great and be grateful. And I'll see you next time on Mic'd Up.